I am David Attenborough, and I am 93. I've had the most extraordinary life. It's only now that I appreciate how extraordinary. The living world is a unique and spectacular marvel, and I'm going to tell you how.
After the AP Biology exam of 2045, Xenomorph decided to treat the love of his life, XX-121, to a refined meal of space rock at their favorite restaurant. As they were talking about the FRQ section, Xenomorph couldn't help but to look at his girlfriend's beady black eyes and shiny head and admire how beautiful she was. He felt like he was falling in love again for the very first time, just like the last week when they met.
Xenomorph decided to research this bizarre feeling when he first saw her, so he could get answers as to why his stomach was fluttering, or why he felt like puking alien guts out. Eventually, Xenomorph discovered the biology of love.
What our alien hero felt were the chemicals dopamine and norepinephrine. Dopamine is a long-distance cell-signaling hormone that is released in the hypothalamus in our brain when we do things that make us feel rewarded or happy. This chemical isn't just released when you see someone you love. It can be released when you listen to a good song, eat a yummy food, or even when you buy new clothes that you like. When released in your bloodstream, dopamine causes feelings of satisfaction and motivation.
On the other hand, norepinephrine is another hormone which is involved in our body's fight or flight response. Norepinephrine is actually produced by dopamine when it reacts with the enzyme dopamine beta hydroxylase. It is synthesized in the pons and medulla. When released through the body by norepinephrine transporters, it is received by G-protein-coupled receptors called adrenergic receptors.
In combination with dopamine, this chemical causes us to feel giddy, alert, and can even decrease appetite and increase insomnia. So, when these chemicals are released when we see someone we are attracted to, many of us typically lose sleep because of the person we like. I know I do.
Fun fact, dopamine also gives the response of pleasure and reward after alcohol or drug consumption. This is where the phrase, love is a drug, came from, because it releases the same chemicals that taking drugs does. As far as your brain is concerned, when in love, you are an addict.
Our body thinks that falling in love is sort of like a crisis, which explains why we have the same symptoms when falling in love as when we see something scary. Our faces can get red, palms sweaty, and our hearts will beat fast. This is what is going on with Xenomorph as he is looking at his girlfriend talk about the 2045 Advanced Placement Biology examination.
A few years passed by and the two of them got married. They thought this was the happiest day of their lives until later they had their very own alien baby. Throughout XX-121's pregnancy, Xenomorph was a very supportive husband. He would give her high fives and "you got this" to help motivate her to keep going while carrying the baby. The special day came and finally XAE-12 was born. When the baby first met XX-121 out of the womb, she whispered to him, "I love you."
XX-121 fell in love with her child and wanted to protect XAE-12 forever. Xenomorph felt slightly jealous. The baby had just arrived, and already XX-121 seemed to love this minutes-old being more than him. How could this be? Xenomorph decided to research this strange phenomenon.
The mother-child bond is a bond that is essential to the growth and development of a child. It is so important that hospitals actually have a section of the bill that is for skin-to-skin contact with your child. When a mother holds her newborn baby against her skin, a complex cascade of physiological and emotional responses occurs, largely mediated by oxytocin.
Oxytocin is a long-distance signaling peptide hormone secreted into the bloodstream. Created in the hypothalamus and released by the pituitary gland, oxytocin plays a huge role in regulating behavior when it binds to the oxytocin receptors in our cell. It is a major chemical involved in the process and importance of skin-to-skin contact from mother to child. In maternal health, oxytocin facilitates bonding and emotion synchronization between a mother and her child, creating that inseparable relationship when the child first exits the womb. Oxytocin acts as a natural stress reliever and floods the brain with feelings of love, stability, and relaxation when the baby makes contact with the mother.
But skin-to-skin contact is not just important for the mother's connection to her child. When a baby feels its mother's skin, it will not only experience stress relief and emotional bonding triggered by oxytocin, but skin-to-skin contact can actually serve as a temperature regulator for the baby, as being held close to its mother decreases its surface area to volume ratio and allows it to maintain a stable internal temperature. Satisfied with his research, Xenomora returned his focus to his family, which was growing beautifully. XAE12 was growing to a healthy child and even passed its flying test 4 years after being born. The three of them were out on a picnic on a warm, carbon dioxide-filled day. XX121 was reminded of that dinner that she went on with Xenomora long ago and smiled as she ate her Moontas pasta. Everything was going beautifully. Happy family, happy kid, and happy couple. After lunch, the family packed up and began to leave.
XX121 watched in horror as a spaceship struck his beautiful green skin and watched as his cosmos shiny eyes shut closed. Xenomora was dead. After Xenomora's death, XX121 felt like her heart had died too. She had no motivation and it was all she could do to keep caring for XAE12. Why does she feel so hopeless?
Well, remember when we said being in love is not just similar to being addicted, but is addiction? Because XX121 had formed so many connections, and therefore neural circuits relating to her husband, his death caused an abrupt shutdown of the release pathways of many chemicals in XX121's brain and body.
The ones full of oxytocin, dopamine, and norepinephrine was reduced significantly, and without these chemicals, the feelings of happiness, reward, and motivation are lost. Further, feelings of social rejection caused by the loss of a partner activates the somatosensory cortex and the dorsal posterior insula, areas of the brain associated with physical pain. That is why we can often feel panicky, depressed, or crushed when we go through a breakup or other loss of someone important to us.
When the circuits of oxytocin and dopamine are inoperative because of the loss of someone we love, another chemical called cortisol is released. Cortisol is a steroid hormone released from the adrenal glands. When it diffuses through the membranes of our cells, it raises heart rate and blood pressure. Long-term, high cortisol levels experienced in the case of heartbreak result in chemical imbalances, causing feelings of frustration, anxiety, insomnia, and depression.
However, while heartbreak may cause true physical pain and lead to high levels of stress, cortisol is extremely important in regulating homeostasis and getting us back on our feet after a heartbreak. Cortisol can actually trigger the release of norepinephrine, one of the chemicals released when falling in love, to begin to restore our chemical balances. Further, as cortisol levels increase, after time they can begin to shut off sensory receptors in our brain in a negative feedback loop, giving us a period of decreased hypersensitivity to our surroundings and allowing anxiety to be soothed.
This period helps us heal after heartbreak and move forward in our lives, forming new connections and restoring oxytocin and dopamine circuits. As we relearn how to produce the chemicals that lead to love at normal levels, we can return to feeling satisfied, motivated, and loving in our relationships and lives again.